I stared at my phone, reading the voicemail transcript for the fifth time. My mother's words glowed on the screen, each one making my stomach twist a little tighter. Ember, please. I know it's been years, but I need your help. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't important. My name is Ember, and the last time I heard my mother's voice, I was 16. She was walking out our front door with a Louis Vuitton suitcase and promises of figuring things out. 8 years later, here she was. Her voice crackling through my phone speaker, acting like she had any right to ask me for anything. I was sitting in my father's office when the message came through. The familiar smell of leather and coffee surrounded me as I watched him shuffle through papers on his desk. He looked tired, more tired than usual. The afternoon sun streaming through the windows highlighted the gray in his hair that seemed to have multiplied overnight. "Dad," I said, my phone still clutched in my hand. "Mom just left me a voicemail." He stopped moving, his hand frozen over a stack of contracts. "Corinne." The way he said her name, like it was both a prayer and a curse, made my chest ache. "She says she needs help." I played the message on speaker, watching his face as my mother's voice filled the room. "Please, Ember. I know I don't deserve it, but things aren't what they seem. I'm in trouble, and you're the only one I can trust." Dad's expression hardened. "Delete it," he said firmly. "Whatever game she's playing, you don't want any part of it." I should have listened to him. Should have deleted the message and gone back to our normal Tuesday afternoon routine of reviewing business reports and sharing takeout from the Thai place down the street. But something in her voice nagged at me, a tremor of fear I'd never heard before. "What if she really is in trouble?" I asked. Dad sighed, rubbing his temples. "Sweetheart, your mother's greatest talent is making her problems everyone else's emergency. Trust me, I learned that lesson the hard way." He started coughing then, deep, rattling coughs that seemed to come from his very core. I rushed to get him water, but he waved me off. When the fit passed, he looked even more exhausted than before. "Dad, are you okay? That cough's getting worse." "Actually," he said, straightening in his chair, "there's something I need to tell you." He gestured to the seat across from his desk. "Sit down, kiddo." My heart dropped. I knew that tone. It was the same one he'd used when he told me my childhood dog had died, when my first boyfriend cheated on me, when Mom left. "I've been seeing some specialists," he began, his voice steady despite the weight I could hear behind his words. "The tests came back last week. It's stage 4 lung cancer. They're giving me 6 months, maybe a year with treatment." The world tilted sideways. I gripped the arms of my chair, trying to anchor myself to something solid as everything else seemed to float away. "No," I whispered. "There has to be something they can do." "We'll fight it," he assured me, reaching across the desk to squeeze my hand. "But I need you to be prepared. The business, everything I've built, it's all going to be yours." My phone buzzed again. Another message from my mother. "Ember, please call me back. It's about your father." I looked up at Dad, who was watching me with concern. What does she know? I wondered aloud. "Nothing good," he replied grimly. "Whatever she wants, remember who she is. Remember what she did to us." But as I sat there, torn between my father's warning and my mother's plea, I couldn't shake the feeling that something bigger was unfolding. Something that would force me to choose between the parent who stayed and the one who left, between trust and suspicion. Between the comfortable life I knew and the uncomfortable truths I might discover. I saved the voicemail, knowing that whatever I decided to do next would change everything. The cafe where I agreed to meet my mother was exactly her style, overpriced lattes and pretentious artwork on exposed brick walls. I arrived 15 minutes early, choosing a table near the exit. Old habits die hard. When she walked in, it felt like being punched in the chest. 8 years had barely touched her, same perfectly styled blonde hair, same designer clothes. Same confident stride that used to make me feel so proud when I was little. Now it just made me angry. "Ember, sweetheart." She moved to hug me, but I stayed seated. Her arms dropped awkwardly to her sides. "Thank you for coming. I wasn't sure you would." "I almost didn't," I said, watching her settle into the chair across from me. "You said this was about Dad?" She flinched at his name, her manicured fingers fidgeting with her wedding ring. Not the one Dad gave her, but the upgrade from Victor. Her new husband. "Yes, but first, how are you?" "You look wonderful." Are you still working with your father? Cut the small talk, Mom. What do you want? A barista approached, and Mom ordered some complicated drink I couldn't pronounce. I asked for black coffee, making her wince. Some things never change. Your father's sick, isn't he? She asked once we were alone again. Terminal cancer? My coffee cup froze halfway to my mouth. How did you? I have my sources. She leaned forward, lowering her voice. Ember, there's something you need to know about the business. Your father. He's not who you think he is. A memory flashed through my mind. Dad teaching me to ride a bike, running alongside until I found my balance. Dad staying up all night helping me with science fair projects. Dad holding me while I cried after she left. Don't, I warned. Don't you dare try to poison this too. I'm trying to protect you, she insisted. There are things happening, deals being made. When your father dies, if you know so much, why didn't you reach out to him? Why come to me? Her perfect composure cracked, just for a second. Because he wouldn't listen. But you're smart, Ember. You always were. I need you to look into something for me. There are documents. Documents. I laughed, but it came out harsh. Let me guess, you need money. That's what this is really about, isn't it? It's not that simple. She glanced around nervously. Victor's company is struggling. If certain information came to light, there it is. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. You haven't changed at all. Still using people, still only caring about yourself. Ember, please. She grabbed my wrist. Your brother Jasper. Don't. I yanked my arm away. Don't you dare use him to manipulate me. He's 15, the same age I was when you walked out on us. Does he know you're here? Her silence was answer enough. That's what I thought. I pulled some cash from my wallet and dropped it on the table. Stay away from me, Mom. And stay away from Dad's business. As I turned to leave, she called out, I know about Milo Thompson's offshore accounts. I froze. Milo was Dad's business partner, practically my uncle. He'd been there for every birthday, every graduation, every milestone Mom had missed. What are you talking about? She smiled, that calculating smile I'd seen so many times before. Have dinner with me tomorrow night. I'll explain everything. I should have walked away. Should have told her to go to hell. Instead, I heard myself say, text me the details. Outside, I leaned against the building, trying to steady my breathing. My phone buzzed, a message from Dad. Everything okay, kiddo? I stared at the screen, thinking about the tired look in his eyes, about Milo's offshore accounts, about all the questions I suddenly had. Mom was lying. She had to be. But what if she wasn't? I typed back, all good. Just running some errands. The lie tasted bitter in my mouth, but I needed to know the truth. Even if it meant playing my mother's game, even if it meant risking everything I thought I knew about my family. Because sometimes the worst betrayals come from the people we trust the most. I spent 3 days digging through company records, searching for anything connected to Milo's supposed offshore accounts. The office felt different now. Every shadow held secrets. Every casual conversation could hide a lie. When Milo stopped by my desk that morning, my hands instinctively covered the financial reports I'd been reviewing. Working hard or hardly working? He asked, the same joke he'd made since I was a kid. Just catching up on some paperwork, I said, forcing a smile. How's Dad doing today? Resting. The chemo's hitting him pretty hard. Milo's face softened with genuine concern. You should go see him, Ember. He's asking for you. Guilt twisted in my stomach. I'd been avoiding Dad, afraid my face would betray what I was investigating. I will. Just need to finish something first. After Milo left, my phone buzzed. Another text from Mom. Found what I mentioned yet? Time's running out. I was about to ignore it when an email notification popped up from Victor, my stepfather. My heart stopped when I saw the subject line, urgent, financial discrepancies. The email was brief. Ember, need to discuss some concerning transactions I've discovered. Can we meet privately? Don't mention this to anyone, especially your mother. My hands shook as I drove to Victor's office downtown. The pieces weren't fitting together. Mom's warnings about Milo, Victor's mysterious email, Dad's illness. Something was very wrong. Victor's secretary led me straight in. He looked up from his computer, his usually immaculate appearance slightly disheveled. Thank you for coming, Ember. Please close the door. What's going on? I asked, remaining standing. What transactions? He turned his monitor toward me. These wire transfers, all to an account in the Cayman Islands. They're linked to your father's company, but the paperwork doesn't add up. I leaned closer, scanning the numbers. Millions of dollars transferred over the past year. That's impossible. Dad would never. It gets worse, Victor interrupted. Your mother came to me last week, asking for a substantial loan. When I refused, she threatened to expose these transactions to the SEC. The room spun slightly. She's blackmailing you? I think she's desperate, Victor said quietly. But I'm more concerned about where this money is actually going. Have you noticed anything unusual at the company? Before I could answer, my phone rang Milo's number. When I answered, his voice was tight with panic. Ember, get to the hospital. No, it's your father. I ran out without explaining to Victor, my mind racing. At the hospital, I found Milo pacing outside Dad's room. He collapsed during his treatment, he explained. They're stabilizing him, but... Through the window, I watched the medical team working around Dad's bed. He looked so small, so fragile. Nothing like the strong man who'd raised me alone. Milo, I said, my voice barely steady. I need to ask you something. About the offshore accounts. He went very still. Who told you about those? Does it matter? Are they real? Ember. He glanced at Dad's room, then pulled me further down the hallway. Everything I've done has been to protect your father and you. But your mother, she's going to destroy everything we've built. What are you talking about? What did you do? Before he could answer, I heard a familiar voice behind me. Well, isn't this cozy? Mom stood there, designer handbag clutched like a shield. I tried to warn you, didn't I? About the kind of men you trusted. Get out, I snapped. You don't belong here. Actually, she smiled, pulling papers from her bag. I belong exactly here. These documents prove that Milo has been embezzling money for years. Money that should have gone to your father's medical care. Milo stepped forward. Corinne, don't. Unless, she continued, my daughter helps me with a small financial matter. Then perhaps these papers never reach the authorities. I looked between them. Milo's guilty face. Mom's triumphant smile. Dad lying unconscious just yards away. The truth hit me like a physical blow. I was just a pawn in their game. And it was time to stop playing by their rules. You want to see some real documents? I pulled out my phone, bringing up Victor's email. Let's talk about what I found. Dad was awake when I entered his hospital room the next morning, looking smaller against the white sheets. The documents I'd found were burning a hole in my bag, but one look at his face made me hesitate. You look terrible, he said, managing a weak smile. Look who's talking. I settled into the chair beside his bed, watching the steady drip of his four. The doctors say you pushed yourself too hard yesterday. Had to make sure everything was in order at the office. He reached for the water glass, his hands shaking. I helped him take a sip, pretending not to notice how much weight he'd lost. About the office, I started, but he cut me off. Milo told me you've been asking questions. His voice was quiet but firm. About the accounts. The air felt suddenly thick. Did he tell you everything? Enough. Dad closed his eyes briefly. The money. It wasn't what you think. We were protecting the company. Protecting you. By committing fraud? The words came out sharper than I intended. Mom's threatening to expose everything unless I help her blackmail Victor. Did you know that? His laugh turned into a cough. Your mother always did have perfect timing. This isn't funny, Dad. The CC, the police, they could take everything you built. Everything I built? He looked at me directly now. Ember, the company was never meant to be my legacy. You are. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A text from Jasper. Need to talk. Mom's acting weird. Can you meet? I have to go, I said, standing. But this conversation isn't over. Wait. Dad grabbed my wrist with surprising strength. There's a safe in my home office. Behind the Degas print. The combination is your birthday. He released me, sinking back into the pillows. Whatever you find, remember I love you. I found Jasper at our usual spot, the old playground where I used to take him when he was little. At 15, he looked too big for the swings now. Mom's been crying, he said without preamble. I heard her on the phone talking about losing everything. And Victor? He's barely home anymore. It's complicated, Jazz. I'm not a kid anymore. His voice cracked slightly. I know something's wrong. Jess, is Mom in trouble? I thought about the documents in my bag, about Dad's safe, about all the lies tangling around us. We all are. Back at Dad's house, my hands trembled as I entered my birthday into the safe. Inside was a single USB drive and a letter addressed to me. The paper felt heavy, expensive, Mom's preferred stationery. The date showed it was written 8 years ago, the day she left. My phone rang Victor's number. When I answered, his voice was tense. Where are you? Dad's house. Why? Stay there. Your mother's on her way to the hospital. She's going to tell Owen everything unless we meet her demands. What demands? $2 million and control of the company's Asian subsidiaries. He paused. She says she has proof that the offshore accounts were used to hide money from her during your parents' divorce. If that's true. I looked at the unopened letter in my hand. I'll handle Mom. Jess, keep Jasper away from this. Ember, Victor said softly. Whatever happens, I want you to know, I never knew what she was planning. I'm sorry. After hanging up, I finally opened the letter. Mom's elegant handwriting filled the page. My dearest Ember, by now you've discovered what your father and Milo did. The money they hid, the lies they told. I'm not leaving because I don't love you. I'm leaving because I can't fight them alone. Someday you'll understand that sometimes we have to destroy everything to build something better. All my love, Mom. The paper crumpled in my fist as 8 years of grief turned to rage. They'd all lied, Mom, Dad, Milo. Each claiming to protect me while using me as a pawn in their game. Well, I was done being a pawn. I plugged the USB drive into my laptop, my finger hovering over the enter key. Whatever truth it contained would change everything. But maybe that's exactly what needed to happen. Sometimes we have to destroy everything to build something better. I pressed enter. The USB drive contained years of financial records. But one transaction caught my eye, a series of payments to a shell company called Phoenix Holdings starting the day Mom left. I was still staring at the screen when my phone lit up with Jasper's text. Mom's taking me to the airport. Says we're going on a trip. My blood ran cold. I called him immediately. Where are you? I demanded when he answered. Terminal B. Mom's acting weird, Ember. She keeps checking her phone and... Put her on. A shuffle, then Mom's voice, smooth as silk. Ember, darling. Bad timing, we're about to board. Taking Jasper on an impromptu vacation with Victor's money? The bitterness in my voice surprised even me. Or should I ask Phoenix Holdings about their investment strategy? The line went quiet for a moment. How did you get away from my brother? No. He's my son. He's a kid you're trying to use as leverage. I was already grabbing my keys, running to my car. Like you used me 8 years ago. I'm protecting him, she hissed. Victor's company is collapsing. Once the SEC investigation starts. What investigation? Another pause. Check your email. I pulled up my phone's email app at a red light. There it was, a forwarded message from the Securities and Exchange Commission, requesting documents related to Phoenix Holdings and offshore transfers. You reported Victor's company, I realized. Your own husband. Victor, your father, Milo. They're all going down. But I can protect you and Jasper. We just need to leave for a while. I pressed harder on the accelerator. Put Jasper back on. Instead, I heard commotion in the background. A security announcement. Mom's muffled voice saying something about boarding passes. Mom. Jasper's voice came through, shaky. Ember, something's wrong. She's crying. I could see the airport ahead. Jazz, listen carefully. Mom's trying to run. Whatever she's told you. But Dad's in trouble, right? She said we have to leave before. She's lying. The words exploded out of me. She's been lying to all of us. The money, the threats, everything. It's all because she got caught stealing from Victor's company years ago. She's trying to escape before. The call dropped. I screeched into the terminal parking, barely remembering to lock the car. Running through the airport, I dialed Victor. She's trying to leave with Jasper, I gasped. Terminal B. Call security. Already done, he replied grimly. Ember. There's something else. Your father's asking for you. The doctors say. I stopped running. No, not yet. He can't. You need to choose. Now. The airport speakers crackled. Final boarding call for Flight 2476 to Grand Cayman. My phone buzzed, a text from Jasper. Help. Another from Dad's nurse. Please come quickly. And finally from Mom. I'm sorry, baby. Sometimes running is the only way to survive. I stood frozen in the terminal, tears burning my eyes. Dad was dying. Mom was escaping. Jasper was trapped in the middle. And I had to choose. The truth hit me then. This wasn't about justice anymore. It wasn't even about revenge. It was about breaking a cycle of lies and manipulation that had poisoned our family for generations. I took a deep breath and made my choice. Victor, I said into the phone, I need you to do something for me. Pull up every record you have on Phoenix Holdings. Every transaction, every signature, every phone call. Then send it all to the SEC. That will destroy your mother. I know. I watched as airport security moved toward Gate B12. But sometimes we have to destroy everything to build something better. I ended the call and started running again, but not toward the gate. Toward the exit. Toward the hospital. Toward the only parent who had never made me choose between love and lies. Behind me, I heard Mom's voice calling my name, desperate and breaking. For the first time in my life, I didn't look back. I made it to Dad's hospital room just in time to hold his hand. His last words weren't profound or dramatic, just a quiet "I love you," before the monitors started screaming. I stood there numb, as the medical team rushed in, their urgent voices fading to white noise. Hours later, I sat in his empty room, staring at my phone. 17 missed calls from Victor. One text from Jasper. They arrested Mom at the airport. Where are you? A knock at the door made me look up. Milo stood there, his face drawn. Ember, I'm so sorry. About Owen, about everything. Did you know? My voice sounded strange, hollow. About Phoenix Holdings? He stepped into the room, closing the door behind him. Your father was trying to protect you. The money. It was meant to be your inheritance, hidden where Corinne couldn't touch it. Stop lying. I stood up, my legs shaky. I saw the records. The payment started the day Mom left. She was blackmailing you both, wasn't she? Milo's silence was answer enough. Dad died thinking I chose him, I whispered. But he was just as bad as she was. It's more complicated than that. Milo reached for my arm, but I jerked away. Owen wanted to tell you everything, but then the cancer. Miss Callahan? A detective stood in the doorway, her badge glinting under the fluorescent lights. We need to ask you some questions about Phoenix Holdings. My laugh sounded borderline hysterical. Join the club. We have evidence suggesting you were involved in the transactions. She pulled out a document. Your signature appears on several wire transfers. That's impossible. But even as I said it, I remembered the stack of papers Dad had me sign last month. Administrative stuff, he'd said. For the business. The detective's expression remained neutral. We'll need you to come with us. She doesn't go anywhere without a lawyer, Milo interrupted. Mr. Thompson, you're also under investigation. I suggest you both. My phone buzzed. Victor calling again. This time I answered. They're freezing the company's assets, he said without preamble. All of them, including your father's estate. The room started spinning. But the medical bills, the funeral costs. I'll help however I can, but... He paused. Corinne's talking to the prosecutors. She's offering evidence against everyone, me, Milo, Owen's estate. She's trying to cut a deal. Of course she was. Even from a jail cell, Mom was still playing her games. Miss Callahan, the detective was getting impatient. Are you coming voluntarily, or do we need to make this official? I looked around the hospital room where Dad had died less than 3 hours ago. His coffee cup still sat on the bedside table half full. A crossword puzzle lay unfinished beside it. All these little pieces of him, already turning into evidence in someone else's investigation. I need a minute, I managed. Please. Once they stepped outside, I sank into the chair, my head in my hands. Dad was gone. Mom was in custody. The company was frozen. And I might be headed to jail for signatures I didn't even know I was making. My phone buzzed one more time, Jasper. They won't let me see Mom. I'm scared, That's when I broke. Tears came in huge, gasping sobs that felt like they might tear me apart. Everything Dad and I had built, everything we'd protected, was crumbling. And the worst part? I couldn't even grieve him properly because his lies were still unraveling. Through my tears, I noticed something poking out from Dad's crossword puzzle, a folded piece of paper with my name on it. With trembling fingers, I opened it. My dearest Ember, if you're reading this, I'm gone and the truth is out. But there's one more thing you don't know. Check the safe at home one more time. The second combination, your mother's birthday. I'm sorry for the lies, but everything I did for love. Dad. The detective knocked again. Miss Callahan? Time to go. I wiped my eyes and stood up, Dad's note burning in my pocket. Whatever was in that second safe, it was my last chance to understand why everyone I loved had chosen lies over truth. But first, I had to face the consequences of their choices. And mine. After 3 days of questioning, the police finally let me go home. The first thing I did was head to Dad's office, my hands shaking as I input Mom's birthday into the safe. Inside, I found a single envelope containing photos, dozens of them, showing Mom meeting with known criminals years ago, long before she left us. My phone rang. Milo. Don't trust the evidence, he said without preamble. Your mother's deal with the prosecutors. It's based on forged documents. How do you know? Because I helped her create them. His voice cracked. 8 years ago, when she threatened to expose Owen's dealings with Phoenix Holdings. But the real story, it's worse than you think. I spread the photos across Dad's desk. The real story is in front of me. Mom was working with criminals before she ever left. Dad was protecting me from her, wasn't he? No, Ember. He was protecting her. From them. From himself. From everything he did to keep her safe until she couldn't take it anymore. The office door opened. Victor stood there, looking exhausted. They're moving Corinne to federal custody tomorrow. If you want answers, now's your chance. At the detention center, Mom sat across from me in her orange jumpsuit, her perfect facade finally cracking. You found the photos. Start talking. She touched the glass between us. I was young, stupid, working as a cocktail waitress when I met your father. He was different then, ambitious, dangerous. He used me to get close to certain people, gather information. When I tried to leave, he threatened to expose my involvement. You're lying. Ask Milo. Ask him about the night Owen burned down his competitor's warehouse. Ask him where the Phoenix Holdings money really came from. My phone buzzed. Milo again. Don't believe anything she says. I'm on my way. He's coming here, isn't he? Mom smiled sadly. Perfect. Maybe now you'll finally learn the truth about the man who raised you. The detention center door burst open. Milo rushed in, out of breath. Ember, wait. Tell her, Mom challenged. Tell her about the fire. About the man who died. Milo's face went ash white. Owen was protecting you. By becoming a murderer? Mom's voice rose. By forcing me to help cover it up? Stop it. I slammed my hand against the glass. Both of you. Just stop. But they couldn't stop. Years of secrets poured out. Dad's illegal dealings, Mom's forced compliance, Milo's role as the faithful fixer. Each revelation felt like another knife in my chest. I left to protect you, Mom whispered. But Owen, he couldn't let go. Phoenix Holdings wasn't about hiding money from me. It was about keeping me quiet. The payments, the threats. He knew I'd never risk losing you completely. My phone lit up with a text from Victor. Adisi found something. Get to the office now. I stood up, my legs unsteady. You're both going to jail. You know that, right? Maybe, Mom said quietly. But ask yourself, why did Owen make you sign those documents last month? Why did he make sure your name was on everything? Horror dawned slowly. He knew he was dying. And he knew I'd talk, she finished. He tied you to everything, made you complicit. His final insurance policy. Milo reached for me. Ember, let me explain. I backed away from both of them. Dad didn't protect me. He used me. Just like you did, Mom. Just like everyone. Not everyone, Mom said. Check Victor's personal email. Password is Jasper's birthday. See who really tried to keep you clean in all this. I left them there. 2 broken people trapped in a web of their own making. In the parking lot, I sat in my car staring at my phone, wondering which truth would hurt less, the one I'd always believed. or the one I was about to discover. Sometimes the real revenge isn't about destroying others. It's about finally seeing them for who they really are. I typed in Jasper's birthday and held my breath. 1 year later, I stood in front of Dad's grave, autumn leaves crunching under my feet. The headstone was simple, just his name and dates. No mention of the legacy he left behind, both good and bad. Victor's emails had revealed everything. Years of correspondence showing how he'd worked secretly to protect me from both my parents' schemes, gathering evidence while trying to shield me from the worst of their manipulations. In the end, his testimony had helped reduce my involvement to unwitting participation, saving me from prosecution. "Ready?" Jasper asked, appearing beside me. At 16, he was already taller than me, but his eyes still held that same trust they always had. Almost. I placed a small stone on Dad's headstone, a tradition he'd taught me, though I never knew if he'd made it up or if it meant something more. The company had survived, barely. After the dust settled, I'd used what remained to start something new, a foundation helping kids affected by white-collar crime. It felt right, turning all that darkness into something meaningful. My phone buzzed, a message from Mom's prison email account. She had 3 years left on her sentence, reduced for cooperation. I hadn't opened any of her messages in months, but this subject line caught my eye. "You were right." Inside was a single paragraph. "I spent my life running from the truth, convincing myself that lies were protection. But you chose differently. You chose to face everything head-on, to build instead of destroy. I'm proud of you, even if I don't deserve to be." "Mom still writing?" Jasper asked, trying to sound casual. "Yeah." I slipped the phone back in my pocket. "How's therapy going?" "Better. Doctor says it's good I'm talking about everything now. About Mom, about all of it." We walked back to the car together, where Victor waited. He'd become the father figure I never knew I needed. Steady, honest, present. The kind of parent who showed love through actions instead of words. "Milo called," he said as we got in. "The appeals court denied his request." I nodded, feeling nothing but a dull ache where the anger used to burn. Milo had tried to claim Dad had forced him into everything, but the evidence told a different story. Some betrayals can't be blamed on anyone else. Back at my new office, I found an unexpected visitor, the detective who'd first questioned me at the hospital. "Miss Callahan," she said, rising from the reception area. "I thought you'd want to know we found more of Phoenix Holdings victims. Families who lost everything." "Send me their information," I replied. "The foundation can help." She hesitated. "There's something else. Your father." We found evidence suggesting he tried to make things right at the end. Anonymous donations, debt forgiveness. It doesn't excuse what he did, but it complicates things, I finished. Everything does, eventually. After she left, I sat at my desk, looking at the photos on my wall. Not the perfect family portraits Mom used to insist on, but real moments. Jasper at his school play. Victor teaching me to golf badly. Even one of Mom from before everything fell apart, laughing at something off camera. And there, in the center, the last photo taken of Dad and me together, both of us smiling despite the hospital setting. We looked happy, even knowing what was coming, even carrying all those secrets. My computer pinged, another donation alert. Someone had given a significant amount to the foundation, anonymously. The timing, the amount. It could only be Mom, using whatever resources she still had hidden away. I thought about deleting it, sending it back. But then I remembered what Dad had written in his final note. "Everything I did for love." Maybe that was true. Maybe it wasn't. But I could choose what to do with that love now. The real kind, the complicated kind, the kind that survives even when everything else burns down. I accepted the donation. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even or proving points. Sometimes it's about building something new from the ashes of what was lost, and letting that be enough. I picked up my phone and, for the first time in months, opened the chat with Mom. "Thank you," I typed and hit send. It wasn't forgiveness, not exactly. But it was a start.